Good evening. I would like to begin tonight's teaching with a question, and that is the practice of sexual freedom risky, responsible, or reckless? Often, when the subject of my work comes up in conversation, many assumptions are made by others. One typical go to is that my sexual liberation is equated with the lack of sexual boundaries. And consequently, many attempt to shoot their shot. The opposing projection is an impulse to recite all the ways I am antithetical to one's theology or understanding of God's will. Statements which begin with the Bible says and thou shalt not are quick go-tos. Now, I don't have to remind you that humans are full of interesting complexities. We are a wonder, complete with creativity and multi-dimensions. My journey towards sexual healing has revealed many things, three of which I will share tonight. There is and has always been much championing around freedom. Our ancestors, our foremothers, our forefathers always had freedom on their lips, whether or not it was honored in their day to day lives. Many sacred texts, including the Bible, recount story after story of people who believed the divine's will was that they should live free, and freedom was pursued at all cost. While I believe freedom is the divine's good pleasure, it requires commitment, fortitude, and tenacity. Another way of saying it is freedom ain't free. Some resign from freedom because circumstances prove too challenging or appear to be insurmountable. So, the question to ask yourself is, where in your life have you ended your quest towards freedom? Whose limiting beliefs have you absorbed and made your own? First question I asked was if sexual freedom is risky, responsible, or reckless. And my answer is all of the above. And let me say why. Sexual freedom does involve risk. A risk is without guarantee. It has the potential to end favorably or adversely. Many decisions we make in life come with risk. And rather than dismiss the situation altogether, it is beneficial to assess it because deliverance requires exploration. When you want to be free from something or someone for that matter, you must step out from the familiar or the routine. You need to be curious as to what different actions to take. This means exploring what else is out there. We stay stuck because we are afraid or unwilling to step out into the unknown. And there are no guarantees in the unknown, which is why it's risky. And when Jesus told his disciples to follow him and bring nothing for the journey, I believe he was saying what they needed was not tangible, but intangible. Their journey, I believe, would reveal what was inside and what needed to be birthed from them. Exploration of the unfamiliar or unknown can reveal what you are made of. And this can birth self-acceptance. Many struggle with self-acceptance because they don't know the depths of their power and brilliance. And to accept yourself and live into your truth is a risk. And the risk will leave you vulnerable. Now, when you are revealed to yourself and the divine, you are exposed, naked, if you will. And if you are uncomfortable with your nakedness, your authentic self, you may tend to hide or cover up. When Adam and Eve were in the garden and they ate of the fruit, they were afraid and they hid themselves. Adam said, I heard you walking. This is Adam speaking to God. I heard you walking in the garden, so I hid. I was afraid because I was naked. Shame or fear causes us to cover ourselves, and vulnerability calls us to be naked and unashamed. God's response, as recorded in the text, was, who told you you were naked? And that's my question to you. Who told you you were naked? Who told you to be ashamed of who you are? Take the risk towards self-acceptance and vulnerability so that your journey is not in vain. Sexual freedom requires, number 2, responsibility. According to a large scale survey of American adults, women have about 1 orgasm for every 3 a man enjoys. And that's even though women can have multiple orgasms within one sexual act. 1 orgasm for women for every 3 a man has. Now, why do you think that is? I think one of the reasons why is that we have put the responsibility of our pleasure in the hands of others. And this is not only specific to sex. Pleasure is a gift from the divine, and it is our responsibility to ensure that we partake in it. To know pleasure is to engage in our senses. Our senses enable us to understand ourselves and the world around us. This is a practice in embodiment. Carol S. Robb wrote in Making the Connections, Essays in Feminist Social Ethics, that we are conditioned by religious and philosophical orthodoxy, or the official doctrines of the elites, to view the body and bodily needs as lower animal modalities of existence that have to be tamed or in some way overcome and transcended by a higher and more loftier power that is really rational and spiritual. Is this idea that to be spiritual or to be of a sober mind is to ignore, suppress, repress the body. And this theology explains one of the reasons we, specifically women, detest or dishonor our bodies. We ignore our body's needs. We suppress its cries for care because we have separated ourselves from our own bodies and rendered them unimportant. I want you to assess the condition of your body and notice how many times you silence its needs. Sensuality is a way we reconnect with our holy selves, which are not just our spirit, but also our bodies. Sexual freedom is reckless. That's number 3. I'm learning to be more balanced in my thinking and living, meaning I have learned there exists multiple truths to anything. There is a dual side to reckless, which is not just abandoning all reason, caution, or care. When I think about recklessness, I also see thrill seekers, or those who love adventure. When I was in high school, I worked for Six Flags, and employees were given free tickets for family and friends. And I extended one of my free tickets to a friend. And we drove, I think, Six Flags maybe 45 minutes, maybe longer, from the city limits. Drove all the way out to Six Flags. Now, I am the type that will ride every roller coaster. There's no amusement park in which I faced a roller coaster and was afraid to kind of jump in there. Now, I'm not the one who raises their hands in the air. I'm still gripping and holding on, but I do enjoy the thrill of a roller coaster. My friend, on the other hand, her idea of adventure was to walk the park. Now, I thought, what a waste of a ticket, because we didn't have to come all the way out here to do that. And also, I wanted somebody to enjoy the excitement with. Now, for her perception of me, my behavior was probably reckless. And my perception of her was that she lacked excitement and adventure in her life. Um, I say all that to say that an unconscious response, whether we know it or not, um, an unconscious response to adventure is letting go. This is what is necessary to achieve orgasm and or enjoy excitement or an adventure. It's going with the flow. It's submitting oneself to the mystery, whether it's nature or spirit. It requires relinquishing some control. And this is how power is used and redistributed. I think that maybe in a later teaching, I'll explore power and sexualization a little more deeply, but we'll save that for another conversation. In her 1978 essay, Uses of the Erotic as Power, Audre Lorde theorized the erotic as the profound resource of feminine power within the spiritual plane, something to be explored and experienced with one's whole heart. The erotic is an arousal powerful enough to move us when we surrender to and use its force. It's an awakening, living, and renewing energy, and it beseeches us to surrender to our power and not our insecurity. After all, Eros is a form of love, and liberty is a way love is expressed. It's worth considering what ideas or aspects of power do we need to either embrace or relinquish so that we can step more fully into our erotic self. So there is a balance to that power. It is a catch and release, so to speak. So those are my 3 points of sharing around sexual freedom, that sexual freedom involves risk, sexual freedom requires responsibility, and sexual freedom is reckless. I shared on my first video last week that a good lover is tender, patient, and generous when engaging in a sexual act with a person who is new, newly exploring this terrain. So be a compassionate lover when you comment. Feel free to like or subscribe, and let's take this pilgrimage towards self-acceptance, sexual exploration, and spiritual discovery together. Until next time, may your spirits be encouraged and your bodies pleasured. Good night.